Very good. So today is our third class, and we are going to talk about the Berditchev Rav and the Alter Rebbe or Baal Tanya, and we're going to draw some comparisons. And I like to just do a quick review. The first class, we spoke about the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov, we said, was a special soul that was rewarded to come into the world exclusively for the assistance of others. We said that in the time of the Baal Shem Tov, the Jewish people were in a faint because of terrible decrees and terrible pogroms that had been happening, and they needed someone to revive them. And when somebody is in a coma, sometimes a way to bring them out of the coma is to whisper their name in their ear. And that's why the Baal Shem Tov's name is Israel, because it's the name of the Jewish people. So he came to wake up the Jewish people, to revive the Jewish people, to bring them back, to iron out the separations and the difficulties and the schisms within the Jewish people that were so common in his day. And the Baal Shem Tov invested his whole life into bringing Jews back to Hashem, into bringing joy back into Judaism, and into showing that the very simple people are tremendously beloved by Hashem. And he taught very, very deep secrets of mysticism, but he taught his disciples that the tune of the simple people singing praises to Hashem in Tehillim was sounding in heaven like more beautiful than the song of the angels. That was the Baal Shem Tov. The second class, we spoke about the holy brothers, Reb Elimelech of Lizensk and his brother, Reb Zushe of Anipoli. And they were disciples of the Mezritcher Maggid, who was a disciple of the Baal Shem Tov. And they devoted their lives to travel from town to town, helping Jews do teshuvah in a very, very subtle way by talking to themselves and saying out loud that they had done the things that they hadn't done, that the person in the presence had done. And they wanted to help the person do teshuvah. And so they would say that they had done those things and that they were confessing and repenting. But really, it was the things that the person present had done. And that way they work together as partners, the two holy brothers. And today we're bringing you the Mezritcher Maggid's, another Mezritcher Maggid's disciple, and that is Rabbi Levi Yitzchack of Berditchev. Rabbi Levi Yitzchack of Berditchev was a tremendous genius in Torah from the time he was very, very young. He was very, very great in his learning of Torah, both halacha and Kabbalah and Hasidus. And at a young age, he came to the Mezritcher Maggid and became his disciple. Now, the Berditchever, he's called the Berditchever because at some point in his life, he became the Rav, the rabbi of the city of Berditchev. And it was very difficult in that place because so many of the Jews were assimilating at a great speed. So it was a huge challenge to be the rabbi in Berditchev. Even people used to make fun of him. Even in the theater in the city, there was a whole show set up just making fun of him. So his life was very, very difficult in Berditchev. So a story is told about a man who lived in a different town. He was a Jew, but he was very, very assimilated, and he loved the theater. So somebody said to him one day, if you love the theater so much and you are Jewish, you can't miss this show. In the city of Berditchev, there is a theater, and they have a show that's just to make fun of the rabbi. The rabbi there is really odd. He prays in a very, very unusual way. He becomes so enraptured in his prayers that he jumps and he rolls on the floor and he screams in the middle of the prayers. It's like really, really unusual. And so they have made this show in the theater just mimicking him. So he says, oh, that sounds like fun. I shall travel to Berditchev and watch. And so our protagonist travels to Berditchev and gets to Berditchev and goes to he was wealthy, he goes to the best hotel in town. And they ask him, oh, you're visiting, what are you doing here? He met some people and they start talking. And he says, yeah, I've come to go to the theater. I heard that there is this amazing show that's very, very humorous, and it's just mimicking the rabbi of your town. So somebody says, oh, really? Is that why you came? Well, why go to the theater when you can watch the real thing? And it's even better. It's Friday today. Tonight it will be Shabbos. It will be Friday night. And the rabbi will be putting on his very own show. He's going to be doing his own prayers and his own singing. And you will see what strange things it does in his prayers. So the man says, actually, that sounds better than the theater. I should go see the real thing. So he does. Now, this man had grown up Jewish in a regular Jewish home from those days with everything, Shabbos, candles, and Kiddush and everything, but he had left it all and was living a completely assimilated life for many, many, many years. But he comes into the shul and he sits in the back of the shul and he's ready to watch the show. And Rabbi Yitzchack of Berditchev, an extremely, extremely holy person, comes in and starts to sing the Friday night tunes, Lechadodi, and all the Tehillim that we say Friday night. And this man is sitting in the back, and he's suddenly hit very, very deeply in his soul. He says, I remember those tunes from when I was a child, and the way the rabbi is singing them is very, very powerful and extremely touching. And he starts to cry and cry and cry. And he stays through the entire thing, far from mocking the rabbi. He's now completely transformed. He regrets everything he's done for the past 50 years. And he so much wants to be Jewish again, but what to do? He's left it all. So everybody, everything is finished and everybody leaves. And he's sitting still in the back. He can't move. He can't go back to his hotel room. He's just sitting there. So the shamash, that's the attendant in the shul, comes and needs to close up the place and needs to lock the door. So he comes over and he says, excuse me, sir, I don't know you. You're not from here. How can I help you? I see that you haven't left. Do you have a place to go to? So the man tells him his story. He says, I came because they told me about your rabbi, and then I was so deeply touched and I can't move now. I would like to come back to Judaism, but I can't. It's been so many years and I've done so many wrong things. So the assistant in the shul takes him to Reb Elimelech of Berditchev, and the man starts to cry and cry and cry and pour out his soul. And the Berditchev tells him, listen, I tell you what to do. You, after Shabbos, you're going to go back home and close all your business and come back here, and I will help you. And you will come back to Torah and you come back to mitzvah. And the man says, no, Rebbe, you don't understand. If I go back home, I won't be able to come back here. I will fall back into my lifestyle, my assimilated lifestyle. I won't be able to come back here. So the Berditchev says, yes, you will go back home and you will come back here. You sell all your business. Half of your money you will give to charity. The other half of your money you will live on it. You will support yourself with the other half of your money, so that you can learn Torah and come back to Torah and mitzvahs and completely become a complete Baal Tshuva. So we see from this story the power of the presence of the Berditchever, that just by listening to his Friday night tunes, a person's life was completely transformed. There are two aspects of the Berditchever Rav that I would like to touch on tonight. Of course, in all of our life, there is our relationship with God, with Hashem, and our relationship with others. So I would like to just show what his relationship with Hashem was like, a tiny bit of a window into his feeling for Hashem, and then a little bit about his relationship with others, before we head for the other Rebbe that I wanted to talk about tonight, which is the Alter Rebbe or Baal Tanya. So, as we mentioned, the Berditchev was a disciple of the Mezritcher Maggid, who was a disciple of the Baal Shem Tov. So Rabbi Yitzchack of Berditchev, the Berditchev, was a spiritual grandson of the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov had also a regular grandson, who's Reb Baruch of Mezhibuzh, who was a Rebbe in his own right in the city of Mezhibuzh. And their way of serving Hashem was parallelly opposite. It was two completely different ways of serving Hashem. The Berditchev, who was extremely enthusiastic and emotional and expressive, and he would burst into song and he would jump. When he made Kiddush, he would become so excited that his hand would shake so much and he would jump so much that there was no wine left in the cup. So by the time he got to the end of Kiddush and he had to say the last bracha, they had to keep on refilling his cup all the time because all the wine would pour out. So it was extremely emotional and expressive. Reb Baruch of Mezhibuzh, who was the Baal Shem Tov's grandson, was extremely the opposite. He was very, very civilized, very calm, and he would serve Hashem with deep feeling as well and with great knowledge of Torah, but in a very, very calm way. Well, the Berditchev really, really wanted to go and visit Reb Baruch, the Baal Shem Tov's grandson, and watch how he serves Hashem, how he spends Shabbos and everything he does. But there was a problem. Reb Baruch didn't really want him to come because he was so wild in the service of Hashem. And he said, no, if he's going to come to my house and he's going to make Kiddush and the wine will splash on all the guests and everybody's going to get splashed with wine and it's going to, I can't have him in my house. His behavior is like really outlandish. I can't have him here. So the Berditchev was really, really begging through messages from Reb Baruch that he should allow him to come for Shabbos. Finally, Reb Baruch said, okay, I'll tell you what. You can come to my house. You're very, very welcome to come. But you need to behave. You need to be very civil and very calm. So the Berditchev said, agreed. But the only way that I can be so much in control of myself and not lose my cool and not become excited and start spilling wine is if I don't do any of the Kiddush. I'm just going to listen to your Kiddush and answer Amen, and then I can control myself. Once I start making Kiddush, I just get too excited and the wine starts splattering all over the place. So I'll say Amen to your Kiddush, not make my own Kiddush. Deal, very good. So the Berditchev agrees that he's going to be civil and calm. Reb Baruch agrees that he's going to make Kiddush for him as well. And we have peace. The great day comes and the Berditchev comes to Reb Baruch's house. They go to shul together and then they come back for the dinner. And the whole time, the Berditchev prepared himself mentally. He meditated. Tonight I will be calm. Tonight I will not explode in my enthusiastic service of Hashem. I will serve Hashem tonight in a very cool and collected way so that I can observe how Reb Baruch serves Hashem. Very good. So everybody's a little bit nervous because they want to know what's going to actually happen because they know the reputation of the Berditchev, but they know that he said it's going to be good. So they come, they sit around the table, and Reb Baruch makes Kiddush in his very calm and collected, peaceful way. And the Berditchev, Reb Yitzchak, is standing there quietly thinking and controlling himself, working every second and controlling himself and being calm. And he answers Amen, and very good. It's past. It's over. The first scary part of the meal is done with. Now we go wash. Everybody washes their hands, come back to the table. Reb Baruch makes the bracha on the challah. Everybody answers Amen. Everybody gets a piece of challah. Reb Yitzchak is only answering Amen and eating his challah. And so far, so good. Then the fish will be served. Now that should be an easy thing. Now you all know about the gefilte fish Jewish Ashkenazi Jews eat. And in those days, there was a tradition to eat two types of fish. According to some opinions, there was the sweet recipe and the sour recipe. And there were different opinions about, like Jews having everything, differences of opinions. Some people said you eat the sweet first and then the sour, and some people said you eat the sour fish first and then the sweet. So there was a Chassid who wanted to assist in the Rebbe's house, in the Reb Baruch's house, and he volunteered to be the waiter so that he could be in the Rebbe's house. So this Chassid brings from the kitchen a big tray of fish, and in this tray of fish, there is the two types of fish in the same tray, and he would come around the table, go to every guest and ask each guest, which type do you prefer? But actually, he was speaking Yiddish. Now, if you know Hebrew, you know that if you ask somebody, which type do you like? You would say, Eze ata ohev, which means, which one do you love? So in Hebrew, if you're asking somebody, which one do you like best? You're going to be saying, Eze dag, or whatever, ata ohev, which means, which one do you love? And in Yiddish, it's the same way. So when you ask somebody, which one do you prefer, or which one do you like? You're actually saying, which one do you love? So this Chassid of the Rebbe comes with a big tray of fish, comes over to each person, and of course the guest is going to be served first. So he serves the Rebbe, and then he comes to Reb Yitzchack of Berditchev with his big tray full of fish, and he says to him, which one do you, in Yiddish of course, which one do you love? The Berditchever froze. He heard the word love, and he froze. And then he said, love, I don't love fish, I love Hashem. And he went like this with his hands. Down went, or rather up went the tray with all the fish. All the pieces of fish flew all over that dining room and landed on all the people around the table. And a big fat and oily piece of fish landed on Reb Baruch, the Rebbe, and everybody went, ah! Reb Baruch used to eat Friday night with his talis on. And this big oily piece of fish fell right smack onto the talis of the Rebbe, Reb Baruch, and everybody's, oh. And you know what Reb Baruch did? After Shabbos, when people in the family wanted to wash his talis, he said, no, I will never wash my talis, because this big splatter stain of fish on my talis is a stain that happened because a tzaddik loves Hashem so much that he couldn't bear to hear the thought of somebody saying, which fish do you love? And he said, I don't love fish, I love Hashem. He just burst, he couldn't hold it. So he says, my talis will never be washed. And that was a very, very holy talis that was never washed because of that special fish stain that was on it. And that talis was passed to the next Rebbe and the next Rebbe for generations. At first, that talis was used only on Shabbos. Then the next generation, the talis was used only on Yom Tov. The next generation, Rebbe only wore it on Yom Kippur. And then when it came to a few years before the Holocaust, the last Rebbe who had that talis asked to be buried in it. And we understand that he knew that the Holocaust was coming and everything would be destroyed. And he took that talis with him into the next world. So this story is a little window into the tremendous love that Reb Yitzchack of Berditchev had for Hashem, that even on a night when he had put all of his energy and he had assured everybody that he was going to be composed and control himself and behave like a good boy, when he heard the question, which type of fish do you love? He just couldn't, he lost it. And he screamed, I don't love fish, I love Hashem. And there went all the fish. Now that was his relationship with Hashem. It was the most passionate, loving relationship that a human can have with his creator. What about his relationship with humans? Well, the Berditchever is famous as the Jewish people's lawyer, the Jewish people's advocate, the Sanegor, the defense angel of the Jewish people. And he would spend his entire life defending the Jewish people. As we mentioned, that in his time, there were many people who were assimilating and going to the government universities instead of going to yeshiva, and as they did, they became completely assimilated. There wasn't an option to go in those days to go to university and remain an observant Jew. So the Berditchev had this huge challenge, and he devoted himself to constantly speaking positively about the Jewish people, and he would go to the greatest extremes. So his mind frame was, my mission in life is to bring out the good, to focus on the good and only on the good and mention only the good. Now, you probably remember that the Baal Shem Tov had taught his disciples that they should go from town to town, and when they come to a city, they should stay and observe the Jewish people in that city and meditate on the good they found in each one. So his spiritual grandson, the Berditchev, was focusing and bringing out only the good, shining a light only on the good. And so, for instance, one time, everybody was davening, everybody was praying, and they saw through the window of the shul, there was a Jew with his talis on and his tefillin on. And you know, when your tefillin are on, that you're supposed to be focused on the tefillin. And you're not supposed to distract your mind into doing other things. You have to leave other things for after prayers. When the tefillin are on is a very special time, and you need to be focused on the tefillin. Well, this unfortunate man was wearing his talis and his tefillin, and he was a wagon driver, and he was greasing the wheels of his wagon while saying the Shema with the talis and the tefillin on. And everybody who was in the shul observed him and was horrified. This is terrible. How could this man be desecrating his tefillin and his talis and saying the Shema and saying Shema while he's greasing the wheels of his wagon? The Berditchev looked at him, took a moment to observe, and then he turned his eyes to heaven and said, Master of the universe, how great are your children, the Jewish people. Even when they are greasing the wheels of their wagon, they are still praising you and saying your words and saying the Shema. So he completely turned it on its head. And on another occasion, he saw a Jew who was smoking on Shabbat, and he went over to him and he said to him, my dear Jew, surely you forgot that it's Shabbos today. And the Jew said, no, I remember very well that it's Shabbos. So he says, surely you must have forgotten, or you don't know that it is forbidden to smoke on Shabbos. And the Jew replied, no, Rebbe, I know very well that it is Shabbos and that I am not supposed to be smoking on Shabbos. So the Berditchev had nothing else to say. What could he say? He turned his eyes to heaven and he said, Master of the universe, how precious are your children. They are unable to say a lie. On the afternoon before Pesach, the Berditchev went on a very extravagant adventure. He went to different Jewish homes, knocked on the door, went over to different Jewish people in the community and said, excuse me, do you happen to have any silk from Turkey? And they said, Rebbe, what are you talking about? You know, it's illegal and the government is checking on us. And Rebbe, I do. It's hiding in my basement. If you don't tell anybody, I'll give you some. And the Rebbe said, well, actually, I don't really need any right now, but it's good to know where I can get it if I need. And then he went to another Jewish man and he asked him if he had some other type of smuggled goods. Now, the Russian government was very, very strict with smuggled goods, and the punishment was terrible for somebody found in possession of smuggled goods. And yet, the Berditchev went over to several people and asked for different types of smuggled illegal goods. And he found several people who owned them and were ready to sell them to him. Then he went to another person, another Jew, and he said, excuse me, can you give me a piece of bread? And the Jew is, Rebbe, it's almost Pesach. I have no bread anywhere. I burned it all this morning. You would know that. You're the Rebbe. So you sure you don't have any bread, not even a little piece to give me? No, Rebbe, absolutely. Can you find some? I'm sorry, Rebbe, there's no way for me to find bread right now. Pesach is starting very soon. Okay, thank you very much. Then he went to another Jewish man and he said, excuse me, would you happen to have a rogalach, which is a kind of Jewish style cookie? And the man said, what did you say, Rebbe? I want a rogalach. It's, this kind of, wrapped up cookie. The man says, but Rebbe, it's a Pesach. I don't have any rogalach whatsoever. Can you find some for me? Maybe somebody smuggled some, maybe somebody hid some. No, Rebbe, as much as I would like to help you very much, there's no way that I could find. And so he went over from house to house, asking who would have some chametz, some bread or some cookies, and he couldn't find in the entire city one Jew in possession of one crumb of chametz. So before starting his Pesach Seder that night, the Berditchever, Rabbi Levi Yitzchack of Berditchev, turned his eyes to heaven one more time and said, Master of the universe, look how precious your people is. The Russian government has put all sorts of guards and all sorts of inspectors and police and created the scariest punishment, established the scariest punishments for people found in possession of stolen goods, or smuggled goods. And yet I was able to find quite a few people in possession of it. And you have not put any policemen, you have not put any guards, you have not put any border inspectors. And we could not find one crumb of chametz tonight before the start of Pesach. Look how precious your people are. And so the Berditchever devoted his life to bringing out the beauty of the Jewish people, the good of the Jewish people, and always showing the best. So now, Chasidim tell a parable that relates to the different Hasidic masters and their style of dealing with the Jewish people. And this is the parable. Once upon a time, there was a king. That's how all the parables start, right? And the king wanted very much to have the best artist paint his portrait. Problem was, the king had a few, let's say, flaws. The king had a very hunched back. The king was blind in one eye, and the king had one leg shorter than the other. So now he offered a reward for the artist who would come out with the best painting, but the artists were facing a big dilemma. How do you portray the king to make the king look good and remain faithful to the king's image? So they had to work, they had to deal with this, they had to work with this. So 3 of the best artists in the country came up with their paintings. And on the day when they opened the exhibit to the public, there was a very, very big celebration. And all the noblemen and noble ladies were invited to the king's palace to see these amazing works of art. Of course, these big paintings were completely covered with a large cloth, and they were going to be unveiled, each one by the artist that had painted it in front of the king. The king was going to choose the best one. So the first artist comes and uncovers his amazing portrait. And of course, it was beautiful, it was stunning. Everybody goes, oh, wow. The king looks at it, he looks magnificent. The problem is, he's not hunched, his legs are the same length, and his eyes look good. So the king says, well, it is a beautiful portrait and the art is magnificent, but it's actually not me. So let's see the second one. The second one, the artist uncovers his painting And there is the king, and he looks amazing, but it's sort of like a profile. The king is looking sideways. So since the king is looking sideways, you can't tell much about his eyes. The king in his portrait is like 3/4 side, so you don't see the painting is hiding the hunchback, is hiding the difference of the leg, and is hiding, and it has the king looking sideways, so you don't see the second eye. So the king says, well, that is a very nice painting indeed, but again, it's not really me. Now comes the third one. The final portrait is going to be unveiled. The artist pulls off the cloth, and again, everybody goes, wow. And the king can't stop staring at the painting. It's different from the first and the second. The third artist portrayed the king riding a horse. So as the king is riding on the horse, he is leaning forward so that you can sort of tell that his back is hunched, but it's becoming, because it's the way that people ride a horse. And since the portrait, it's showing his shorter leg, but because he's on a horse, you only see that leg. And the portrait is showing the man's blind eye, but because he is riding his horse in the sunshine, is squinting. So it is a blind eye, but the eye is squinting, and the squint doesn't look as a fault because he's in the sunshine. So the king says, that is my favorite portrait. It's beautiful, it looks fine, and it's actually looking like me. So that is a parable. And who are the three artists, and what is the image of the king? The three artists are great Chasidic masters who portrayed the Jewish people in a specific way. The first one is the Baal Shem Tov. So as we said, the first artist gave us an image. The first artist gave us an image of the king, but it's not the real image, it's perfect. The Baal Shem Tov looked only at the good in the Jewish people. If there was any negativity, and of course there was negativity, and there were flaws, and there were problems, and so on, the Baal Shem Tov chose not to look at that, to only look at the good. As we learned that the Baal Shem Tov would tell the other hidden tzaddikim to go to all the different cities and focus on the good on each person. So the negativity was ignored, the flaws were ignored, and the focus was exclusively on the good. And that was beautiful, but it wasn't so exact a reality as reality actually was. The second one, it looks more like the king, but it's only one side of the king. So this is the view. The first one was the Baal Shem Tov. The second one is the Berditchev. So the Berditchev is choosing to focus on the good and bring out the good and make what in Kabbalah and Hasidus is called a birur. A birur is when you take the good and you separate it from the bad. When you don't ignore the bad, but you just bring out the good. And as you're bringing out the good, you make it shine. So that is what the Berditchev did. He, as this painter portrayed a profile of the king, a side view of the king. So it's not a complete view, but he only showed the good side. So the Berditchev only showed the good side of the Jewish people and pulled the good out of the bad. Who is the third artist, you might be wondering? And what is the meaning of his work? The third artist is the Alter Rebbe of Baal HaTanya. What did he do? This artist took the flaws and brought out the qualities in the flaws. He portrayed the king riding a horse, and therefore you could see that he's hunchback, but his handbag will look natural in a galloping position. You could see that his leg is shorter, but it looked okay because his leg was bent as he was galloping on the horse. You could see that his eyes almost closed, but it's okay, he's squinting in the sun. So what is the meaning of this with the Alter Rebbe? The Alter Rebbe teaches us in Tanya that there are different ways of serving Hashem. There is a tzaddik, there is a Benoni, there is a rasha. And as beautiful and perfect as the tzaddik is a perfect person who has conquered all of his evil inclination and is only serving Hashem. But there is another kind of person who serves Hashem in a different way. There is a pasuk, there is a verse in the prophet Malachi, chapter 3, verse 18, that says, V'shavtem bera'isem ben tzadik v'rasha u'ben oved elokim la'asher lo avado. You will go, return, and you will see the difference between a tzaddik, or a perfectly good person, and a rasha, which is a wicked person, and between someone who serves God and someone who does not serve him. And at first look, at first appearance, you will think that there is the tzaddik and the rasha, that's the good and the bad, the one who serves God and the one who doesn't serve God. And you think, yeah, the good guy is the one who serves God and the bad guy is the one who doesn't serve God. The Alter Rebbe of Baal Tanya gives us a completely new view of these words. And he says, a tzaddik is someone who's already there. He or she worked for many years on self-improvement and changing the personality traits that are not positive and working on themselves to only serve Hashem and only desiring to serve Hashem and only doing what is good, only saying what is good and only thinking what is good. And after years of hard work, this person arrived at the point of being a tzaddik, somebody who is perfect in the divine service and does no bad, only good. So this person is already there. The rasha is the person who is not doing much good, is still doing not good. But what about the second part of this verse that says, and the difference between the one who serves God and the one who doesn't? The Alter Rebbe says that there is an intermediate person called a Benoni. If you have learned Tanya, you are familiar with the word Benoni. The meaning of the word Benoni, as a regular translation, would be the intermediate, the in-between person. The Alter Rebbe says, what is a Benoni? A Benoni is somebody who's not yet a tzaddik, but is definitely not a rasha. In order not to be a rasha, not to be a wicked person, and in order to be considered a Benoni, you never do wrong, you never speak bad, and you never think about doing bad or about a bad thing. So a Benoni is somebody who doesn't do, speak, or even think bad. And what is the meaning of not even think? We all have negative thoughts that pop up in our brains all the time. The difference with the Benoni is that the Benoni chooses not to host the thought. So the thought is like someone who comes to your door and knocks, and you have the option of opening or not opening. So the Benoni is the person that when the bad thought comes, whether it's a thought of doing a bad thing, speaking badly about another person, and so on, the Benoni is the one who doesn't open the door, who says, I know you, you're a bad thought. You're making me think negatively about my sister-in-law. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to change my thoughts right now and think about something else, or think good about this person if that's possible to work out. So the Benoni is constantly working on not doing the negative, not hosting the negative thought. But we had those two categories. Oved Elokim v'asher lo avado, the person who serves God and the person who doesn't serve him. So who's the person who doesn't serve? This is a person, says the Alter Rebbe, who is by nature a cooler person, who does not have a very powerful animal soul, whose animal soul is not constantly asking him to do wrong. And therefore, this person is not constantly working to overcome the animalistic impulses of chasing after the physical pleasures of the physical world. So this is a person who is not doing anything wrong, but is not called somebody who's serving God, who's working for serving God because it comes easy. He doesn't have a war. He doesn't have a battle to fight. So what about the majority of people? People who are plagued by negative thoughts, people who have done so many mistakes, people who had said the wrong thing, oops, so many times, even though I'm trying to, and sometimes the words slip out of my mouth, and I wish I hadn't said that. So the Alter Rebbe is the third artist, the one who took all the flaws and makes them look like qualities. And how does that happen? The Alter Rebbe shows us that no matter what we have done, we can turn it around. And by doing tshuva, by saying, oh, I used to do that, but I don't anymore. And fighting that constant battle and choosing at every moment to do the good thing, to say the right thing, and to think the right thing, that we are transforming everything we have done in the past. And everything that used to be darkness is now light. And that is the person that is serving Hashem with that constant struggle. There is another pasuk in the Torah. In the story, it's a familiar story. I'm sure everybody knows it. It's the story of when the second one of the forefathers asks his son that he's old and he doesn't know when he's going to die and he wants to bless him. So this is Yitzchak or Isaac talking to his son Esau and telling him, prepare for me delicious food, delicacies like I like, and bring it to me and I will eat it and I will bless you. You see, Esau he wasn't a good guy. He needed a special merit to receive the blessings from his father. So his father says to him, go, you're a good hunter, go and hunt an animal, kill it properly according to Jewish law, cook it for me and prepare for me delicacies the way I love. Now, if your memory is still with you, you remember that at the beginning of today, we mentioned about a tzaddik who said, I don't love fish, I love Hashem. So how, if the Berditchev said, I don't love fish, I love Hashem, how is one of our fathers, Yitzchak, who was undoubtedly a very, very great tzaddik, as the sages tell us that the fathers are the chariot that carries the divine, are the chariot that carries the divine will. They had no will of their own, only to serve Hashem. So how could he be saying, prepare for me delicacies the way I love? Doesn't make sense to me that he loved food. What is he talking about? So comes the Alter Rebbe, the Baal Tanya, and explains these delicacies, which the word is said in plural, implying two different kinds of foods, is referring to two kinds of divine service, two different ways to serve Hashem. When you eat food, you can eat food that is salty and spicy, or that is sweet and creamy. And if you are a gourmet, you will want both, of course. If you are hungry and you have an appetite, you don't want ice cream. For dinner, you want maybe meat and potatoes, or soup and salad, or fish, or something usually salty. And then afterwards, for dessert, or maybe sometime in the afternoon, you have a sweet craving, and then you can have ice cream or cake or cookies or all of the sweet stuff. Well, this is reflecting the two delicacies that we, the people, serve Hashem as these treats. And these treats are the service of the tzaddikim and the service of the Baal Tshuva. And the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe, of whom we are talking about right now, the author of the Tanya, he explained that while the service of the tzaddikim is so beautiful and desirable and gives Hashem so much joy and pleasure, it's like dessert. You can't live on dessert alone. And Hashem wants very much to have this, but Hashem also wants the pickles and the salad and the steak, the things that we call the meat and potatoes of our dinner. So this is the service of the Baalei Teshuvah, of the people who used to not do what Hashem wanted, but they changed themselves and now they are doing what Hashem wants. And their service of Hashem is delicious. And Hashem wants both, not just the work of the tzaddikim, but very much so the work of the Baalei Teshuvah, the people who turn around and are working towards changing themselves. And we give Hashem tremendous, tremendous pleasure with this kind of service. So these are the two kinds of delicacies that are mentioned in the pasuk, in the verse that Yitzchak says, hunt and cook and bring me delicacies the way I love. This refers to the different kinds of services of Hashem that Hashem loves. And the Alter Rebbe worked very, very hard with his book of Tanya to show us that if you are thinking, but who am I? You know, I had this thought and I said the other thing and I did the other mistake and you're feeling down about yourself. No, not at all. On the contrary, this is one of Hashem's greatest pleasures, to see the way you serve him with your struggle. So what Hashem wants and enjoys is your struggle. When you see that you have negative impulses, but you control yourself and you fight that battle and you overcome it, then you are giving Hashem the greatest, greatest joy and pleasure and satisfaction, because you have become a Baal Teshuvah, you have done Teshuvah. There is a story to illustrate this kind of Baal Teshuvah. And I've heard the story told about the Alter Rebbe or Baal Tanya, and I've heard the same story being told about his grandson, the Tzemach Tzedek, but it's more likely that it happened with the Baal Tanya, the Alter Rebbe himself. And the story goes that in the city of Vilna, where he was for a while, there was a man known as Yosel the sinner. Yosel, of course, is a Jewish name. And this Yosel was always, always up to no good. People used to say, if there is a sin happening in the city, it's being done by Yosel. And if Yosel is doing something, it's got to be a sin, because that's all he does all day long. Well, and Yosel liked to drink, and he liked to get drunk, and he liked to gamble, and he liked to fight, and he liked all the things that, you know, sort of not supposed to do. One day, Yosel was walking down the street late at night, and he heard happy singing. He said, "Ooh, happy singing, somebody's celebrating, there must be drinks there. There must be alcohol, I must join them." So he follows the sound, and lo and behold, he ends up in a shul, and the Hasidim are having a Hasidic gathering, and they are celebrating, and they are speaking words of Torah, encouraging each other, telling stories of the Rebbe. And yes, there is alcohol on the table because you're making l'chaim, right? So Yosel comes in and sees the drinks and pours himself a drink, and he's enjoying the singing and the stories, and pours himself another drink. But when everybody saw Yosel, they got very nervous because they knew that Yosel is up to no good. And if Yosel is doing something, is 90% of the time it's a sin. And if somebody's doing a sin in the city, it's Yosel. And they're very uncomfortable having him around, that their Hasidic gathering that they are doing for spiritual elevation doesn't match with Yosel. What are we going to do now? Well, at the end of the Farbrengen, Yosel says, "Hey guys, I had a good time. Do you do this often? Can I join you next time?" And the Hasidim said, "Well, yeah, well, sure, yeah, we'll see. Okay, have a good night, Yosel." Nobody answered him. The next time the Hasidim are having another Hasidic gathering, the same thing happens again. And the Hasidim are getting concerned that their children and teenagers will be receiving negative influence from Yossel, and that, it might give them a bad reputation as Hasidim because they're associating with Yossel, and Yossel is coming to their gatherings, and they're going very uncomfortable. So they say, who's going to talk to him? Who's going to talk to him? Finally, a couple of guys are appointed. You need to talk to Yossel tonight. At the end of the Hasidic gathering or for Brengen, you need to tell him he can't come here anymore. So with much fear in their hearts, they approach Yossel at the end of that for Brengen and they say, Yossel, you're such a cool guy and we like you so much and we're happy to see you and everything, but our lifestyle and your lifestyle, and our children are here and our teenagers and we know you do certain things, and so we like to that we were thinking that maybe. Yossel grew red and his eyes were injected and his eyes were bulging out of their sockets, and he says, I know what you want to tell me. I'm not welcome here, right? You don't want me to come again. Is that it? I know. Well, he picked up the table and threw it over, and he kicked a bench and he went flying, and he said, I'm leaving, but this is not the end. You will hear from me again. And he left and slammed the door, and the building shook. And the Hasidim were shaking like leaves in the wind. And they did take a deep breath after he left. And they were very relieved, but scared at the same time. And true to his word, Yossel, that was not the last they heard of him, but he didn't come back to the Farbrengen. What did they hear from Yossel? The Hasidim got a letter from the Rebbe. And the Rebbe explained that Yossel had contacted him and sent him a letter. And Yossel sent a letter to the Rebbe saying, Rebbe, every day, all day and all night, my evil inclination is burning like a baker's oven. And the voice in my brain doesn't stop saying, sin, Yossel, sin. Do it, Yossel, do it again. Let's go, Yossel, sin. The voice drives me crazy. I can't stop. It's obsessive. I have no peace, Rebbe. The only time this fire, this baker's oven cools down, the only time I have peace and the voice in my brain stops saying sin, 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 is when I sit with the Hasidim at the Farbrengen. And I hear their Hasidic tunes and their Hasidic stories and the stories about the Rebbes. That is the only time that I have peace. And the Rebbe ended the letter to the Hasidim by saying, when you serve Hashem with long meditations and hours of davening, hours of prayer, and your beautiful Farbrengens where you encourage each other to constantly rise higher and higher spiritually and improve, that gives Hashem great nachas, great satisfaction. But when Yossel is sitting for a half an hour and he's not sinning, that creates a storm in heaven greater than all of your divine service. And Yossel is asking, and this they want to take away from me? So the Rebbe ended his letter asking the Hasidim to actually let Yossel in. And it takes someone like the Alter Rebbe, the Baal Tanya, to bring out something that we usually oblivious to. And it's a saying of the sages. Yasha velo avar aveira, if a person just sat and did no sin, it's considered like he did a mitzvah. And he's rewarded for it. sometimes we are tempted to do something, speak badly about another person, do something wrong, even think a bad thought. But sometimes we say, no, but I'm not going to. And we don't give ourselves enough credit for the, I didn't do it. If we write a nice big check to a good charity, if we give a nice big check to tzedakah, we feel good. I did a big mitzvah. Look, I gave all this money to tzedakah. That was great. If we get up early on Shabbos morning and learn some Chassidus and go to shul and daven for a long time with the minyan and sing everything with joy, we say, oh, good job. You know, that was a good davening you did. And we give ourselves credit. We don't give ourselves enough credit for the times we didn't do the thing that we wanted to do, but was not the best thing to do. And that's something that the Alter Rebbe brought out, that when we didn't do, and when we did tshuva and stopped doing what we knew wasn't supposed to be happening anymore, that is a tremendous joy for Hashem. And that is the painting of the king, where you see all the flaws of the king, but because the king is galloping on a horse, they look good. So that is how the Alter Rebbe came, and he saw the Jewish people with this vision of transformation from dark to light, and all the flaws becoming qualities by that movement of teshuvah. And that's why he had many Baal Tshuva. He brought many people from wrong to good. So the Alter Rebbe says, whenever you did not do something wrong that you were tempted to do, celebrate. Congratulate yourself, make l'chaim to yourself that you overcame the temptation and you actually won the battle. So the Alter Rebbe has this way of looking at us and at our life mission and at our accomplishments that it's very unique to himself. He's teaching us how to be a Beneni, how to be the person, and he says that every single one of us has the ability to become a Beneni. Maybe not a tzaddik, but every single one of us, because the tzaddik is disgusted with evil, and not all of us are able to come to the point where a cheeseburger is disgusting to us, or any other temptation is disgusting to us. That's a tzaddik. But all of us are able at every single moment to control and subdue our inclination to do only what Hashem wants in action, in speech, and in thought. So, do we have any questions? Would you like to do a meditation? Should we? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So I will turn down my lights, and you can and put our devices, if you haven't yet, put our devices on airplane mode. And we will do a meditation. Okay, guys. Feet on the ground or on your couch, whatever you choose. Hands on your lap. Make sure you're sitting upright with your head aligned with your spine. Deep breath. Focus all. Okay, I need you to mute. Let me see if I can mute everybody. We're going to go on mute. Deep breath, deep into your belly. And another deep breath. Focus your mind completely on your breath. And as you exhale, you begin to relax. And with each breath, as you exhale, you relax a little more. You release some more tension. You see the light of Hashem coming down from above, from the letters of Hashem's holy name. This beautiful golden light is coming down and it's caressing the top of your head. It's moving downwards, filling your entire head with beautiful godly light. And as this happens, all the tension leaves your head and your face. And the light is moving down your neck and your shoulders and is filling you up with golden, warm, divine light. As this happens, you allow your neck and shoulders to relax. And this beautiful light is moving down your back, your chest, and your arms, down to your hands and fingers. Take another breath, and you feel the light of Hashem filling you up. You see the light going down your hips and thighs, your knees, your legs and feet. And as it does, is bringing you healing, warmth, awareness of Hashem's unconditional and infinite love. Take one more deep breath. As you exhale, release all tension from your entire body through the soles of your feet and to the ground. We meditate on the different ways to see a fellow Jew. If we see another Jew as the Baal Shem Tov does, we see only God. Every Jew is a divine soul, and there is only God. If we see another Jew as the Berditchev does, we know that some things are not perfect, or we are going to brush them aside and focus only on the God. Like the Jew who was saying Shema even as he was fixing the wheels of his wagon. And the Jew who was saying the truth and only the truth. That's how the Berditchev looks at every Jew. And then we meditate on the Alter Rebbe or Baal HaTanya, who teaches us that even though there is negativity and some traits that need changing, those flaws can turn into beautiful qualities. And we focus on ourselves and our fellow beings, turning all the flaws into qualities. We look at ourselves and others as the king on the horse, where every flaw has become a quality. Let's take a moment for each of us to think about something in ourselves that might not be yet perfect. And this moment is a good moment to meditate on how to transform it into a quality. Find something in yourself that you know needs fixing and visualize it transformed into a new quality, into the opposite of what it used to be. See it as it's already happening. See it as a done deal. Visualize it in all its detail. Thank Hashem for helping you make it to this point. And thank Hashem for continuing to help us in the future. Thank Hashem for enjoying the blessing of our struggle. And give yourself a little credit for fighting the battle. At the count of 4, we will be ready to come back, bringing with us a new treasure, knowing that the battle is so precious and knowing that we will certainly win. 1, 2, another breath. You may start moving your fingers and toes. 3. And you can open your eyes slowly and gently. And 4, fully back, re-energized, reinvigorated, rejuvenated, and inspired to win the battle. I will turn on my light. Next week is our final session, and we will talk about a completely different Hasidic master, because this one is our contemporary. Next week, we will talk about the Rebbe and his unique way of looking at the Jewish people and his unique service as a Hasidic master, and how he has made every one of us into a Hasidic master. So, Bezras Hashem, God willing, we will talk about that next week. Until then, if you have any questions, comments, or complaints, you can email me at nomifree@gmail.com if you have any requests. And wishing you a great week.
Thank you. You too. Shavua tov.
Amen. Shavua tov. All the best, everybody.
Enjoy. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.